Hello, this is Father Rich coming to you from the Rectory of Our Lady of Peace. I'm actually in the dining room, and I'm standing before our Nativity set that we have that's typically here in the dining room each Christmas. And below, two great figures, two great saints that are part of today's essay. Today's essay, the first one that we're discussing in our series on how the church has changed the world, a series of essays that have been compiled into a book by Anthony Esolen, talks about St. Francis in the 13th century. It's a narrative, essentially. One of the concerns I have about doing this is that I can't really represent the beauty of the writing of Mr. Esolen. He just does a great job of writing kind of in a poetic way, in a really profound way, that I'd actually encourage you to get the book and read the essays, because I can't represent them here. But he kind of gives a narrative of St. Francis gathering and setting up the first living manger. That this concept hadn't been heard of before the 13th century, of gathering live animals, getting human actors to play the parts, and then gathering the whole community of Assisi there in a cave in the foothills of the Apennine Mountains, which are kind of the spine of the Italian peninsula, the northern part of the peninsula, and a grotto not unlike the one that he may have been born in Bethlehem. Remember that stables that we think of back in those days, they would use natural protection and overhangs, caves. And so there they were in a cave in the foothills of Assisi, and remembering that first Christmas. And so this is a unique contribution, that the manger scenes that we see that are such a huge part of the Christmas experience. We'll first go back to St. Francis. And St. Francis wanted to make the mystery of Christmas, the incarnation, more real for the people. And he was part of, in the 13th century, him and St. Dominic, starting these new, what we call itinerant preacher, itinerant religious orders, that were not just staying in the convents and monasteries, as we know the religious men and women were doing in that first millennia of our church, but going out to the people. They really represent a new kind of chapter in the life and the mission of the church, in representing what we talked about yesterday in the introduction, of being leaven for the world, and not just having people come to the convents and the churches to be sanctified and made holy. And certainly the religious men and women prior to Francis and Dominic had an impact in living out the life of holiness and prayer and service to the community. But uniquely, Francis Dominic going out into the world and being a source of leaven. And that's why Pope Francis would pick Francis's name for his name as the Pope. This was a profound statement that he, like Francis, helped bring a radical renewal into the church by his radical simplicity and living out the love of the gospel and service to others and humility, that he wanted to kind of do the same thing. And Pope Francis has had a profound impact on the church and the world, and I'm sure he wants to even more. So we got to continue to pray for that. So I want to read for you the final paragraph, because I really think it summarizes this way that Francis, in creating the living nativity, but also in how he lived out his life, uniquely recalled us back to the words of the gospel, to be the last, to be the most humble, to be that child, having that faith like a child, and the impact that can have on our world when we live out that humble call to serve in the love of Christ. And so here's that final paragraph. The evangelists tell us that the earth shook on the day when Christ died upon the cross, but that was the great after-tremor of Jesus' first act of love, when in the silence of Mary's house, he became flesh and dwelt among us. We remember at the Annunciation, where he was conceived in the womb of Mary. And then, on the night of the Nativity, first showed to Mary and Joseph, then to the humble animals, and only then to mere shepherds, his sacred face. The earth shook with the fire of love, and from that day until this, wherever men and women still remember the name of Jesus and how he was born in a lowly stable, they will feel that tremor and know, somehow, even if they've forgotten the words, that the meek shall inherit the earth, that the first shall be last, and the last shall be first, and that all the pomp and glamour of the world will pass away, all its capitals and senates and universities and towering dynamos of business leave not one scorched stone upon a stone, but the child born in the manger will remain, and he alone can tell us the secret of who we are and where we must go. St. Francis, as a member of the Holy Roman Church, Catholic Church, changed the world in a very profound way. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day. God bless.